Yep. Hey, Sam, you with us?
I am.
Awesome.
All right, fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Explain Everything. Welcome to the webinar on how to improve your classroom with an interactive whiteboard. And we're super excited to show you how using Explain Everything. My name is Bart. Here's Kuba with me.
Hello, everyone.
And also we have Samuel George online. Samuel is a director. He's leading our educational unit. As a former classroom teacher, he's going to engage with us and show us tricks on how you can improve your classroom. Hey, Sam.
Hey, thanks for having me join today.
I think the scenario that we have for today, it's quite interesting. That's why I encourage you to join our discussion. So those that attend to the collaborative session are invited to join us using the code, and I'll show you the code. It's SCPN. So if you have Explain Everything on your device, you can use it to connect using this code, or if you're using browser, you can go to this address and connect to us as well. So that's using browser. That's using mobile device.
Right, and the cool part of Explain Everything is that if you are using a mobile device and click on the link, it will automatically open the Explain Everything app for you and open that project so you can join in immediately.
Provided that you already have Explain Everything on your device.
Right.
Right.
If you open the link on the mobile device, then you'll be able to click on the link and then download Explain Everything immediately too. So it works fairly well. For those of you who are wondering if by providing a link, some other people can join, yeah, they can join immediately, regardless of their device. So just you can use the link in the chat that I've just posted and join Bart's project there.
Exactly. And, this collaboration that we provide under the link that I share on this screen is actually something you can engage with using the same tools that we have during the presentation. So don't worry, we won't be offended if something will be messed around. That's okay. That's the nature of Explain Everything. We just want you to experience the way your students can experience Explain Everything during the class. So today, what we thought of doing was to provide you a sample of how you can provide knowledge to your students in order to make lesson more engaging, memorable, and by that allow students to retain learnings better.
So for those of you who haven't been on Explain Everything's webinar yet, during the presentation, during the webinar, you can ask questions using the Zoom chat or Zoom Q&A section on the bottom, and we'll be answering them during the webinar and during the Q&A section at the end of this session.
Great. And as Kuba mentioned, feel free to do your own exploration as we go through some of the presentation here. If you do have questions, even if it's irregardless of kind of the flow of what we're doing in the webinar, if it's a question about certain features or functionality, feel free to share those questions as well. We want this to be as interactive as possible and make sure that you guys are getting everything out of it that you came here to get. So again, thanks for joining and thanks for your time.
Awesome. So let's get this started. I'm going to use slide 2 that we have here just to show you what we prepared for today. As we prepared kind of like a sample to walk you through the typical scenario of how we see Explain Everything could be used in the classroom. And this sample is something that we will try to demonstrate how step-by-step Explain Everything can be put to practice as, starting with the adoption of technology. So Sam, could you elaborate a bit? What are the steps in using the technology in the classroom, using this diagram here?
Sure. So some of you might be familiar with the SAMR model. Some of you might not. It's a great kind of golden compass or compass in general for guiding folks into the use of technology in the classroom. So the sample that we'll give today, of course, isn't the only possible use for Explain Everything in the classroom, nor is it supposed to be used as kind of a replication of what you might be working on. It could be kind of outside your department or realm of work, but we want this to kind of be a guide and help kind of give some inspiration or some ideas about some things that are possible. So what we have here is the basis of our activity today is with the focus on inputting the SAMR model, which has kind of 4 major steps to it in terms of how you can move from kind of the traditional lecturing method of teaching to a more interactive or collaborative method. Mm-hmm. And obviously these methods don't happen overnight, or this change doesn't happen overnight, which is why there's kind of 4 steps in this transition or transformation. And we try to go through a little bit of these today. We won't, each of the things that we show you won't apply directly to each of these steps, but this is a great thing to think about when you're either implementing new technology or thinking about different ways to incorporate technology into the teaching and learning that is happening at your school. So here are kind of four steps along that path. Again, this idea of redefinition, which is things that were previously inconceivable to do in your classroom, right, are now possible with technology. Then the idea of how we can modify some of our more kind of traditional types of teaching methods, and how we can modify those to make things a little bit more interactive and collaborative and kind of more significant to the modern classroom. And then after we get through that kind of transformation stage about inputting technology, how can then the output or the outcomes improve with technology? And that would kind of talk more about the second section, which is enhancement. So augmenting these traditional practices. So again, not just substituting your whiteboard or blackboard in the classroom for a mobile whiteboard, but then the things that can be done to really improve the learning that's happening, and then not just kind of in the classroom, but with in a more collaborative fashion with the students. So really augment that traditional experience with the use of technology. And then finally, this idea of substitution, right? So that you've now substituted a traditional whiteboard for a mobile whiteboard. That's a change that's happening, but the real kind of purpose of that isn't just to enhance what you're doing in the classroom, but to kind of really make a difference, and also not to change the way that you're teaching, right? But to enhance the way that you're teaching, or really supplement the way that you're teaching. So we don't want to, we don't want you to use what we're showing today as a way to kind of rethink everything that you're already doing, but a way to really enhance or supplement some of these traditional teaching methods that we believe are still very important to what's happening in the classroom.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our biggest fear is that whiteboards that we produce is used only to use the traditional methods of teachers instead of showing slides from a software of some kind. You use whiteboard for that. Yet whiteboard is so capable of so many things. We just wish that it's used in a way that it's engaging students and making them learn better. So that's why we're going to go through 3 steps to illustrate how can this be done in order to use whiteboard. Within, let's say, a lesson related to what's the water flow cycle. But that's, of course, a simplified lesson related to the water flow cycle. We're going to show you 3 steps. The first step is where students are creating flashcards, trying to express their understanding about each of the steps of the water cycle. And this is something that we think can be a digital equivalent to the flashcards created earlier in the classroom in writing, and it's something that we will show you how to do collaboratively, stepping into the shoes of students. And then we will speak about how those flashcards can be used when teacher provides illustration and instructions related to water flow. And we'll end with an assignment that will put that in practice in even different way of approaching the use and benefits of whiteboard. So, shall we get started?
Sure.
Fantastic. So those of you that collaborate with us can participate in this first step of ours by, let's say, assuming they're in a situation of being students connected to the session that we currently have. So I'll just describe what I have in mind here. We're having a collaborative session here. That means that we open the session in the cloud using Explainer Whiteboard, and some of us are connected. There are like 4 people currently connected to the session. That means everyone, each of those participants can have the tools that are visible here on the left side to work with. And those tools, each one of us can use to add new content to the canvas. So let's say we're about to explore water cycle with students in the classroom. You might want to set the session the same way, open it in the cloud, and provide access to students, let's say dividing them by groups. So each group has a device that is used to connection, or each student has a device that is used to connect to this canvas. So they can work together within this infinite space that we have here. So as you see, if I zoom out or zoom in, this space is actually enormous. What I'm doing here on this shared space is that I'm changing my view. I'm transmitting that through Zoom so those that observe can see, but I'm changing my view without disrupting view of any other participant. That means we can move around the canvas freely without, changing zoom level of other participants. So when setting this first exercise for your students, you can actually do the same and allow them to use this. We call this Ninja Zoom. You see it here in the lower left corner here. We call it Ninja Zoom. This Zoom allows all participants to independently use their perspective within this huge canvas. And as a teacher, if you're broadcasting what's happening on your screen, you can set the stage, let's say, as I do now, as I'm broadcasting through Zoom. So this is visible in the classroom when we do this exercise describing details of the phenomena of each step of the cycle together. All right, so let's say we're preparing to go through the water cycle, and we ask each group of students, or each student, as you like, dependence of how many elements you want to have on a screen, to describe those 4 steps. So Sam, if you could help me with one of those, if I could ask each of the participants to put at least 1 or 2 sentences or kind of like an illustration of those stages. So you see that how this collaborative work is possible and how you can observe that. I'm going to work on, let's say, collection. So while working on collection, I'll show you how you can, being in perspective of student, work with Explainer Everything to provide information about the process. And we'll be in the same time observing what Sam is doing with precipitation, and I see Kuba is working on evaporation at this point of time. So I'll focus on collection as a student that has the task of doing that. What I might do, I'll open Wikipedia and I'll simplify my task for now, as I'm going to provide you instructions at the same time, or I'll ask Google, water cycle. So what you have here provided as a template by the teacher is actually a text object that has ability for text to be put in. So if you tap on the text object, you can put any text you like. You can create a new text object using a text tool like you see it here. That's the text tool. So what you can do is to create a new object, but what we did in this template was to create one for students together with a label. So my label says collection, and I'm going to put information about collection from Wikipedia. So water cycle, yeah, description, yeah. I'm going to look for a collection on this page. Water cycle collection. I'm sure I'm going to find one. Okay, so let's say I'm a student and I'm going to just copy something from the internet to put it here. That's okay. I'll make it black. So that's my description. And of course, I can also add a drawing to illustrate collection, because it's a flow of water downhill back to the oceans and lakes. I'm going to just create an arrow or two to illustrate that. So when you're illustrating, when you're drawing with Explain Everything, you're actually creating an object that sticks to the objects underneath. And this, my drawing here sticks to the description because it has it occupies a similar space as this text object, so it's grouped together. And as you see, oh, here's the text object created and grouped together with text object here. So you can kind of like create elaborate expressions of your way of understanding those stages by grouping objects together. What we want to have is to allow students to express themselves using different forms. They can use images, they can use text, but the great way to approach this is to provide freedom and just limit students by suggesting, okay, we just want 2 sentences from you, but please do a drawing to explore, to show your thinking related to the stage. This way of formulating ideas in forms of drawing is actually something that was covered quite a bit in terms of literature. So here you actually have some illustrations of the stages of water cycle flow coming from an article in Science, where 11 years olds were trying to provide explanation related to those stages. So those are examples how this can look like, as the drawing can be a good learning strategy. Sam, what do you think about that?
Great. I think that's awesome. So kind of what you can see here is, we've created a kind of a collaborative environment where you can have contributions from many different people into the same project, right? So this is kind of a very simplified version of what's possible, and this can be done in kind of any space. But the real point here was to just kind of sample or show the ability for kind of many people to contribute on the same project, right? So you could have one group that's responsible for one of the steps within the water cycle, or you could have the entire group contributing on the whiteboard at the same time. But this kind of example is a great way of showing, this isn't just a kind of a one directional type of teaching that's happening, right? This is a kind of a real collaborative session that's really kind of focused on ensuring that the students are contributing and being part of the creation experience here. So that was kind of the real definition here of this kind of collaborative session, was to make sure that we have contributions and participation from not just kind of a one directional from the teacher to the student, but the students are also involved in the experience.
Absolutely. And by that, we want to allow exchange of information back and forth, because teacher can engage with students and display what is being created on the monitor, on the screen, on the wall, and also interact and add to what is created. So the collaborative nature of the space provides, in our opinion, much better way to engage with students using the technology. And this is what this collaborative aspect is not only used here in the scenario when working on those flashcards. It's something that is used then later in the process. So when moving to step number 2, let's say we're in the moment of lesson where teacher is going to provide information about the entire process. So we have those flashcards covering steps of the process, but now teacher goes through the process, but only supplied with the graphics, generic graphics about the flow without labels. What you can do in this environment, in this setting, is ask students to cooperate with you as a teacher, providing instructions of the elements of the steps of the process that we're talking about. So let's say we have a condensation here. So do we have a flashcard related to condensation? Yes, we do have. So let's say we're speaking about condensation, and you ask students, those students that prepare the flashcards, to provide information to the space where condensation is illustrated. So who was handling condensation? Right. So now we see that Samuel is providing a label, but you can also ask students to bring the flashcards that they created before to the canvas, just moving it from that space to the canvas. Like, oh yeah.
Great. Yeah. So I was kind of just showing there, basically what you could do is you could pull on those flashcards, pull them directly onto that water flow diagram, and then use that diagram to illustrate the flashcards that you had just created, right? So this is, again, you're pulling in the ability of kind of the student participation and asking them to incorporate whether it was looking up a definition or using something that had been taught previously, then to kind of recount what they had learned in that first step and then apply it to that second step. So kind of here's a good example of how they could pull in something that they had learned previously and then apply that to kind of the second step of an assignment or of a kind of a classroom project.
So as you see, this is like an illustration where student pulls the content from the side of the screen so teacher can continue and also give feedback to what was provided by the student when describing the step of the process. So could we bring other flashcards to the screen now as well, please, and position them in the proper places?
Oh,
no,
that was me.
Don't worry. So that's condensation we have here. Okay. So that's evaporation. Yeah, nicely done. And that way, I'm sure that those that will participate in the lesson will be much more engaged than just looking at teacher presenting ready-made water flow. This is something that they collaboratively do, right? And learn from their mistakes if there are mistakes, so the teacher can provide instructions related to the description that they created in the previous step. Okay, and here's collection. I was not happy with those arrows that I drew, so I provided new ones here. So as you see, this has, there are many possibilities how you can use collaboration. This is a very simple example where we're just showing a piece of the canvas and students are bringing in the content from a side. But this ability to setting an open space for anyone to collaborate on the whiteboard has tons of possibilities.
Great. Yeah, and what you can think about here as well is, this could be happening. Each student could have his or her own project of say a assignment template, right? So say a teacher creates this assignment for each student, right? They can then distribute that and each student could work on this individually on kind of this standalone whiteboard. Or what you could do is have a collaborative session like we're having now. You could also take this whiteboard and display it on a screen at the front of the classroom, right? So there's not just kind of one way to do it, or you could do it just like we're doing now, which is kind of more of this distant type of collaborative effort, right? So this could happen in a number of different ways in terms of how it's being taught or being shared. But this is just kind of one example, but you can think of it as, if I'm a teacher, I can take, and I have a Chromebook or an iPad or a desktop computer, I can then take this and basically display it on a display at the front of the room, whether it's a smart board or just a TV display. And then I can have the students collaborate and join in and contribute, or I can have them have their own project and create their own answers to an assignment that I gave them. So there's a kind of a number of different ways to think about this as we go through it.
Great, absolutely. So that's the step number 2, where the process was co-created by students, where teacher was providing information about the entire cycle. So the part of what you mentioned, Sam, is also something that we want to demonstrate in step number 3, which is an assignment that can be later on provided to the students to illustrate their understanding of the cycle in their own words. So let's imagine that it might be a homework assignment, it might be something to do at the end of the lesson. So let's imagine a situation where students have their iPads or Chromebooks or Android devices ready, and we want them to record using digital whiteboard, a short story of how the molecule of water travels throughout the entire flow. So we say, okay, just imagine you're a water molecule and you go through all those motions. Tell us about this and illustrate it or express it how you like by animation. You can describe it. Just free your mind and try to create a video by using the template that was provided by the teacher. So what we did to illustrate that is that we used the graphics that you see here in the background as a template that we saved as a project on Explain Everything Drive that is easy to be downloaded by the students using this code. So I'm actually going to illustrate how you do this as a student. So I'll take the code, and unless, Sam, you want to add something to this framing that we did, we're going to go step by step showing how you can record the process being in shoes of a student.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a great kind of next step is the ability to, and this entire thing could have been recorded, which really kind of differentiates what's possible here, right? So as we went through this entire thing, we could have recorded our whiteboard and use this as an artifact that we could refer back to when we're maybe reviewing for a test, right? So we could basically create a library or an artifact library of assets that we've created that we could always refer back to when studying or when reviewing. All of those types of things are kind of great ways to collect here and explain everything, and then use them as reference points when you need to go back and refer to things that were done previously.
I just imagine how awesome would it be to have this collaborative work on water flow cycle recorded, as you mentioned, during the lessons. So just to demonstrate how this could be implemented. So if you're a teacher and you want to record such situation happening, so collaboration of participants working on this, you have to remember to turn off this ninja mode, as this will make you see the part of the screen that is going to be captured during the video recording. So everyone that will participate in the process of, as we showed before, bringing in those flashcards to the water flow diagram here should use ninja mode, while you as a teacher recording this collaboratively, you should not. That means you're in the control of what is within the frame of the camera. And then you can hit record and start recording. And every activity that is provided by students, annotating as Sam showed, or bringing those flashcards in, will be captured by Explain Everything. So later you can export it as a video. So great, so let's look at this assignment here. So let's assume that I'm now a student. I got the code from my teacher where the template is stored that I can use for my video explanation. So I'll quit this project now, and I'll use join with code to put in the code that was provided by the teacher, so I can see the template that is available for me. I can download the project because, what you can do is those projects that are uploaded to Explain Everything Drive, they can be accessed online if I hit edit here. But instead, I'll do download here in order to download this project so I can record even offline at home. So I'll do it just now. The project was downloaded. It's a local copy of the template that I got from the teacher. And as you see, if I ungroup this, I have all those labels. I have background graphics for an easy start. So having this assignment, I can use those during my recording. Sam, what do you think? Would it be easier to provide a template as such to students for their home assignment, or would you prefer for them to start with an empty canvas?
Yeah, I think it can be either or, depending on kind of the output you're looking for, the outcome here. I think it would be great to have, depending on the level, create their own water cycle. But if it's something that is just as a review, or there are students that again are new to explain everything, it's often helpful to provide some type of scaffolding for that student in terms of what is expected. Right. So for example, yeah, you could take those out and have them, bring them in during the explanation. But it really depends on kind of the level of usage and how comfortable folks are with explain everything.
Exactly. So let me demonstrate how this recording could happen. So as a student, I'm going to hit record here, and I'm speaking here about a story of a molecule that was in the ocean, and there was evaporation that happened and condensation along the way that took place, and then there was this transfer, and then some rain took me down and all the way through the lakes and rivers back to the ocean, and that was my story. So I made like 30-second long clip where you see everything that I spoke about and explained as my journey has been captured by Explain Everything. So I essentially created a very short illustration of my thinking that I can then share with my teacher by exporting this with an option of creating web video links. So essentially what I'll do is I'll create a link that can be shared with my teacher using LMS system, email, whatever we use to share information back and forth within the class. So this in the middle here is a link under which this video will play. I can copy it.
And a couple things to think about as we look kind of back at the video. So for those of you that are brand new to Explain Everything, kind of what was collected during the video, if we pop out the timeline there, the bottom is the voice track, right? So all of Bart's his entire story was captured in that video, right? So when you're playing it back, not just those media elements of the drawing and annotation is being collected, but also the voice, right? So you can hear, and so it really kind of, as Bart mentioned, it really illustrates their understanding of the water cycle. And then for maybe a teacher who's not present, or if this is a homework assignment, they can then review this explanation and see where students might be having trouble or running into issues. And this could go for kind of anything, right? It could be a math assignment where you're given a formula and you're told to kind of work through that formula and come to a conclusion or an answer. It could be something like this. It could be kind of fit into any space or any subject with the ability to record both the kind of annotations or the interactions with the screen as well as the voice.
Exactly. So I failed to copy the link to the project that I created, but I'll take it from my drive just to show you how the video plays, so you as a teacher can watch and observe what students have done. So this is a project that was uploaded. That's my assignment. That's the web video link. So I'll use the link just to show you that under this link, we already have a video that plays from the cloud. So if you're a teacher and you receive a list of links as such, you can open them, let's say in the browser. And as you see in the browser, I do have this video. I can play it even without having an app on my device, as our cloud does all heavy lifting in converting those activities done on the canvas to a form of a video that can be downloaded or streamed from the network. And this kind of like concludes this template that we prepared for today. Kuba, were there any questions related to what we're discussing here today?
Oh, there were a couple unrelated questions.
Okay.
But I've managed to answer them. Cindy was asking if Explain Everything is free. Well, there is a free plan that you can use. You just sign up on Explain Everything website or inside the app, and you can create up to 3 projects and create recordings up to 2 minutes to see how Explain Everything works. It's a great starting point for everyone who haven't yet used Explain Everything. And also, by registering or using a free plan, you are able to join in, as some of you did, to other people's projects and work with them. So that means that if you are a teacher and you create a project that you want to share, it's not only a teacher, but we're talking about classroom scenarios now, but some of the people that you share it with don't have to have Explain Everything account in order to see what you've recorded or in order to participate. They can just join in from they don't need to have a paid account, right, in order to join and work with you and see you explaining stuff. So yeah.
So with this premium tier, you have much more possibilities, but we don't like limit set of tools that you have when you're accessing someone's canvas as a free user. That's not the case. You have, all the creation possibilities that we implemented in the app.
Right. So if you have any questions, all the participants, because I see you still in the project that Bart set up. If you have any questions regarding those scenarios, because we've skipped some of the technical parts of Explain Everything. So if you have any questions regarding those, I'll say how the tool works, or how Bart managed to set up those flashcards, for example, and that could be useful to you. We can go through that. But yeah, if you have any questions that you want to be answered regarding this or something else.
Yeah, and we run a series of webinars. So if you're looking for something more just like a demo of the whiteboard, what we're focusing on now as we engage with a number of teachers that are going back to school and thinking about ways to use this in their classroom, we're thinking about kind of direct use cases or activities that could be used directly in the classroom. So that's the kind of going to be a lot of the interaction that we're going to be having now with these webinars is going to be trying to inspire different uses for the application. If you're looking for something like a demo where we're just going through the tools and what's possible in terms of recording and bringing in different types of media and all of those elements that make Explain Everything very unique, we're happy to set up a time to do that as well. But most of these webinars are going to focus on some of the use cases, and we won't talk necessarily about how to add in a picture or how to draw a circle or how to annotate on top of a PDF, but rather use cases that you can bring in and take with you and talk to some of the folks that you're working on Explain Everything with. So again, if you have any questions about the kind of technical functionality or the tools that are built into Explain Everything, feel free to ask those now. Or there's a ton of great resources on our YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and type in Explain Everything, there's a great section there where we upload a number of different both webinars as well as kind of explanatory videos that will really help you get started with Explain Everything. So not just some of the really simple things like drawing a circle, but the ability to record and remix these recordings. All of that kind of educational stuff is built into some of the playlists that we've built in YouTube. So those are great resources for those that are new to Explain Everything and might be a little bit lost about what we were doing today because they're brand new to it. So we hope this was, again, very useful and gave you some ideas about what's possible. But again, if you have specific questions or want to refer back to some other potential uses that you're thinking about that we didn't talk about today, we're always available. So you can reach us at support@explaineverything.com or sales@explaineverything.com with any of your questions, both about licensing or use cases or functionality. And we're happy to always hop on a call or get back to you as soon as we can. So
Absolutely.
Again, feel free to reach out.
We've got a question.
Okay.
Great.
Carl Heinz. Hello, Carl. It's always great to have you.
Hey, Carl.
Is it possible to make the typical EE rounded rectangle in EE, or is that a clip art? I'd like to change the form of the rectangles or other shapes. I think there is a shape like this, the rounded rectangle in the shape menu, right? Yeah, I think you can select it there. If you go to shape menu,
well, it has rounded corners, right?
Is that what you're looking for?
If you scale them up, yes, you have like a similar looking shape here. Right. But you know, those corners, those are just rounded corners. This is not a shape that we have as you provided here. So the way we work is that we copy and crop those shapes, you know. So yeah, that's actually a good thought, because there's a great tool that we also have here that allows you to draw shapes, but those won't be rounded on corners.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah, they could.
Yeah. The shapes are we cannot transform them as deeply yet. You know, you cannot really do like a Photoshop transformation in them like that. Oh, like this one. Right. Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, they are in clip art currently. And we use them as a part of Explain Everything brands because they imitate the canvas, right? So,
but it makes a lot of sense to add them to the clip art, so those that want to use as you'd like to have those available could use them.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. And we also think about rounding corners of those that you can draw using the shape tool here, because this is quite a powerful tool if it detects the shape that you want to create.
And what's also really quite nice is so I didn't see who asked that question, but Carl. So what's nice is that if you see a shape that you really like, or you want to pull something from the web that you like, say a rounded rectangle that looks almost 3D like, and you might not be able to find that each time, what you can actually do is you can take that object and you can add it to your clip art library, right? So if you're going to reuse, say, a graph, or you're going to reuse an object or an image quite often, you can add those things directly to your clip art library and reuse them every time, right? So that heart, for example, Bart can add that to his clip art via the inspector, and now that's added to his clip art library, and he can go back and say it's a brand new project. He'll be able to reuse that asset that he had previously created, which is great for the clip art library, where you don't have to go and find a specific object each time. So that's kind of the way that I structure a lot of the projects that I'm creating. If I'm going to reuse assets, I'll just add them to my clip art library and kind of build out a library from there.
Exactly. But thanks for asking us this, Carl, as we're going to now think about adding those shapes as well to the clip art by default. And one thing that I wanted also to mention, that if you have questions that you would like to ask us, there is a session in about 2 weeks where we're going to collaborate together with Sam, answering, teaching the basics of Explain Everything in this collaborative mode. So I guess there'll be a lot of things happening on the canvas, I hope. But that's a great way for us to explain our tool, using our tool. So we encourage you to see the resources that Sam was mentioning. And if there's no answer for the type of questions that you have, join us for upcoming webinars.
We've got, it's less of a question, but we've got this. Thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. But I love your product. I use it every day for all of my curriculum. Looking forward to learning and using some of these more interactive features.
And that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. Fantastic.
And that webinar that will be coming up in 2 weeks, that will be more of a demo focus. So it won't be quite in depth talking about a specific use case like we did today. We're where we talked about the different steps of a water cycle and how to capture that using a whiteboard. But this will be kind of more of the basics. So we'll be going into that entire toolbar on the left-hand side and talking about all of the features. So if you have teachers or you have other students who are interested in joining and just learning about some of the real basics of the whiteboard, almost like a training session, that will be more of the focus of that webinar in 2 weeks.
Exactly. So thank you for collaborating with us today on this session. We hope that you like the templates that we provided and the example, and we hope that also you'll discover many ways of using Explain Everything in the classroom, because the possibilities are unlimited.
Right, and you can always revisit the project that we've published. Explain Everything will remember those codes on iPad at least. So you can either download this one or revisit the link that I've posted in the chat, so that you can reuse those things that we've provided here.
And if you find some interesting scenario that you want to share with us, please do. We're always happy to hear from you, feedback, and also suggestions. What else we can incorporate in the app to make it better?
Sure, just send us a note to connect@explaineverything.com. We're always happy to hear from you.
Thank you for working together with us, and we hope you like this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and see you on the next webinar.
See you.